So welcome back, guys, to another episode of Ask the Hustlers with me. I'm actually doing an interview after a really long time, and it feels really good to be doing this. And I hope whatever I do ahead, the kind of episodes I put out, it brings out value in some sort of way to all of you. So welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. And before I actually go on and introduce all of you to the guest I have today with me. I just wanted to give all of you all a quick short update in terms of the context, in terms of where I am, and why did I take such a long time to put out another episode. But this project of mine, this project of mine, I started out with the main aim, with the primary purpose of uh, actually pursuing my interest towards entrepreneurship, towards business in general. And obviously I always had the kind of depth you require to understand people, so I always was interested in understanding people's journeys. But as in when I moved on with this channel, with the kind of episodes I've done, as in when I did those episodes, talked to people, learned from them, understood where they come from, uh, and I took some action on what I wanted to do, I understood that there are parts in me which I want to completely know, which I didn't know. There are some unknown parts in me. So to put it very simply, there are a few interests in me which I definitely want to pursue, and do not want to commit early to some field or some subject. So entrepreneurship was that, but now I realize that there's a lot more which I have in me, which I want to pursue, learn more about. And that's why I will move on to different aspects, different interests of mine. And I don't really know what it is. It's uncertain, but I'm enjoying that uncertainty as of now. So there's a lot more coming, and I will definitely gradually put out things that will be of huge value to all of you. So today I have I'm actually feeling really grateful to have some time with somebody who's from the field of content, right? From somebody who understands storytelling, who understands stories. And so I'm really excited to introduce all of you to filmmaker Shiv Panikker. He's the co-founder of Asylum Entertainment, and he's the author and the creator of Mumbai's first graphic novel, Gone Case, which we'll definitely later talk about. But Shiv is a producer, he is a director, and obviously a screenwriter. He's graduated from the New York Film Academy, and now he then moved on to Mumbai and started his career out here. So Shiv, thank you so much for joining in, for taking out the time. I know it's been a long time when we first chatted about this, but thank you so much for being here.
Dharam, thank you for having me. And I want you to know that I came across your channel way before you could actually approach me. And
Yeah.
what I really like about you is you are meeting these entrepreneurs slash hustlers to talk about their journey. But what's interesting is your journey towards how you are pursuing them and you being a hustler yourself. So that's what actually attracted me to your channel, your vibe. So it's an honor being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Shiv, before I actually move on and uh, ask you the specific things which I always was curious about, but I'll just start with something very generic, something which I am actually very curious about uh, is your journey. If you can just go a few years back, take us a few years back towards where you started. Your college days. The things you discovered about yourself, and maybe those things which helped you understand or realize that, okay, this is where I want to go ahead in. So how did you end up where you are? And if you can just briefly describe your journey.
So, if you talk about college, I'm a student, ex-student of National College Bandra, and over there, everyone around me was very Bollywood stricken. Everyone either came from a Bollywood family, or they knew exactly what movie is coming next and what Shah Rukh Khan wore, and they were all very filmy. I was around a very filmy crowd, and it's that what actually got me into Hindi films. But as I grew older, I realized that I wanted to make a living in the industry, but not necessarily Bollywood. I wanted to learn more about movie making and filmmaking, and how do the cameras work, and what is editing and stuff like that. So that's when I actually joined film school. And I graduated from the New York Film Academy.
Mm-hmm.
I came back to India. I I started working uh, under Kunal Shiv virtual reality films, and I've stuck with him for like I think 6.5 years before I ventured out on my own. I got my first big break as a director over there. Started off as an assistant director, and in film school you go to all these big procedures of learning film and the technicalities of film. But what's funny is when you come back down and when you start as an AD on your first day, you're still sweeping the floor, you're still getting coffee, and you're still doing stuff like that. So it's been a very, very interesting journey. And I got my break as a director, and I decided that instead of continuing in the world of ad filmmaking, which is fun, but it's not creatively satisfying as having your own script. Last year, I released the comic book Gone Case, which was initially written as a feature film script. So I literally summarized my life in 2 minutes. It's a
Wow.
little weird, but yeah.
That's damn interesting. But something, as you've been into film school, um, uh, how would you actually describe the point of time when you realize that this is where I want to take the first step towards? Were you ever confused in terms of not doing something creative? Were you ever in a place where you doubted yourself and you were like, okay, I should do something generic, something mainstream instead of something like this?
So a little part that I skipped out earlier was when I think once I finished college, I used to model a little bit here and there. I think when Flipkart just launched, there were these websites, Inkfruit and Mintra and all that stuff. I used to model for them. And
Okay.
my father then told me, he said that if you want to live under my roof, you need to get a real job. So if you want to get into this industry, I suggest you go behind the camera. So I did a little bit of dabbling in front of the camera, but it wasn't very respected in my household at that time because they didn't understand the industry and the potential a model or whatever could make. So that is why I was compelled to take filmmaking more seriously, take the entertainment industry more seriously, and not look at it from a glamour point of view, but look at it from a business, from a dhanda point of view,
Mhm.
which I think at that point I didn't have the maturity to understand. For me, I thought I'm making these paychecks and stuff, my life will be set, and I didn't really realize the business side of it. I was into it, I guess, for the wrong reasons, from the glamorous aspect. But film
Mhm.
school changed that because you learn so much. And when I went to film school my first day, there were kids around me. I was in film school at 25, and there were guys around me at 17, 18, who already knew so much about filmmaking that I didn't know. And this is like before Instagram and stuff, right? So they were actually taking cameras and learning, and they were like editing on softwares, and I didn't know anything. So it's once I got there, I realized that if I don't buck up and if I don't push myself, I'm going to be left behind. So that's what actually introduced me to the business side of filmmaking. And I'm so glad that whatever you say about Indian parents, they may have had a certain perspective into me not venturing down that route, but I think that matured me into learning about the business side of things. Yeah,
Mhm.
filmmaking.
That actually is in a lot of ways very relatable, not fully, but I'm just 22 right now. So there are a few things which we are told in an Indian household, by our parents. And just being very frank, very transparent, there are things which you initially always ask reasons for, right? So I have this habit of okay, agar ye karna hai, if you want to follow this ritual, if this is the way of life they are saying you should have, if you have to have an arranged marriage, for instance, these are things, uh, for a person like me, at least with the age and with the kind of technology we've grown up, you tend to just find a rational aspect to it. Okay, why? Give me a reason.
Exactly.
But recently, my sister just got married, and we were having this discussion of why there are things, which there are some things in life which you should not question a lot. Because what ends up happening is that you question that and you might not believe it and you have your own way. when you take that own path, you spend 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years of your life, and actually what you end up towards is the same thing which they initially told you. So I have
Correct.
had those 2 or 3 instances where I realized, okay, 2 years ago I was questioning that, I was against it, and now I'm at this point where I start feeling that it is right. So ऐसी बहुत चीजें हैं that if they've done it, if they are your parents, they will have the right intentions, and you should blindly follow that sometimes, because it will save up a lot of your time and energy. uh,
I mean, it's always good to question why. It's always good to have a ration and a logic why. But at the end of the day, I think the lessons learned are the same. Yeah, they're just trying to push you in
right.
the right direction. Yeah, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I ended up doing that, because I guess it's easier to get lost and to give up when the paychecks stop coming. In front of the camera especially. But today, I think when you understand the business from behind the camera, it's a lot easier to go back in front of the camera, because now at least you understand the foundations of the business.
Hmm.
Okay, this is why this is not working. This is where I can actually get a shot, and this is what I should do. So yeah, credit to the parents always.
Right. So, I always make it a point that if I'm talking about a field, I'm talking about a subject, I make it as practical as I can when I'm talking about it, when I'm questioning those things. So, just for if in case there's anybody out there who might be listening to this later on, and they want to pursue something similar to what you did, or into filmmaking, I wanted to ask you, what are those things? Just like, there are people who don't do MBAs now to start a business. So is it, how much importance would you give to a film school in order to learn the craft? Is it that
So
you would have learned the same thing either ways without going into one, or what was that experience?
no, I put it this way. I get this question asked a lot. Like, if you didn't go to film school, would you still break into the business? But it's a tricky question, and here's the answer. You don't need film school to become the best filmmaker in the world. In fact, as of today, 2021, what a film school certificate does is it just it takes you more seriously. When you enter a production house, say a Dharma Productions or a Yash Raj, and you tell them that I've graduated from film school, I want to become an assistant director. The first thing when people say they want, men, women, they say they want to become an assistant director, they're looked at and they're like, okay, does this guy or girl want to be an actor?
Hmm.
Are they trying to? So if they're going to invest in you, that film school certificate basically just takes you more seriously. But when it comes to a learning standpoint, uh, you learn the technicalities in film school. What is a wide shot? What is a close up? How do you frame? How do you edit? Editing is key in filmmaking. You learn your technicalities, but there's no better learning than being on the job. Because when you do come onto the job, say editing, for example, as an assistant director, you do have to sit down with the editor whole night for like weeks on a row until the film is edited. You don't have to do anything. You have to just sit down and watch. It's your job to make sure the editor is doing what they're doing. So you will learn everything automatically. It's just that if you have a knowledge of how it's done, it kind of puts you a couple of steps ahead. But it does not mean that it's going to slower your progress if you don't have that certificate. You can still make it without that certificate in today's day and age. You just have to learn, and you've got YouTube and you've got Instagram, and there are filmmakers teaching you like all sort of stuff that they don't teach you in film school. So it is very easy to make it even without that certificate. But it's just that certificate, uh, people take you a little bit more seriously, especially production houses, if you're looking for employment.
Understood. So I always I'm somebody who watches a lot of cinema, a lot of movies, and in the last 2 years, that the love for that has just increased, and not just as a from a point of view of entertainment. I mean, I've now started believing that in India, to a large extent, we have this mindset of only getting entertainment, only getting masala after a heavy hectic week, on Saturdays and Sundays. If you ask your parents, or if you ask anybody for that matter, the majority people around you, if you ask them to watch a film like say Revolutionary Road, they'll be like, why are you actually showing me something so heavy? but cinema's very basic responsibility is to actually show you what life is, what society actually is. So that mindset in India is still very not that progressive, I feel, which is the change is happening, but it's still slow. So what I wanted to ask you is that how do you see this shift of mindset happening through OTT? I mean, if there were movies till now, and now there's a huge shift through the OTT platforms. So so how do you see the landscape? How do you see the next 3 or 4 years in terms of how OTT has come in, and in terms of the opportunities, in terms of the consumers, the viewers' mindset?
So it's actually a very interesting question because around 5 or 6 years back, I began developing a script with my ex-boss, Kunal, at the time. And, coming from this millennial background, watching movies over movies, and I used to watch Hollywood movies and all these kind of films, not just Bollywood films, but everything. So when you want to write a script, you want to write something that's perfect. You want to write something that's different. The storytelling should be like really interesting. And the feedback I kept getting was, make it more masala, make it more massy, make it more massy.
Mhm.
And that is when that gap actually occurred to me. You don't realize it when you're just watching as a consumer. You'll be like, okay, this is a masala film, or I can choose to watch maybe a Hollywood film or an Arura Kashyap film, which is like 1 out of 10 movies, a Zoya Akhtar,
Right.
1 out of 20 movies. So while writing the script, I realized that, man, it's going to be very tough for me to produce my own story. Now, what do I do and how do I, go about this?
Mm.
Cut to 5 years later when I actually wrote my script, and I was more comfortable writing the story I wanted to write because we are in an atmosphere right now where the OTT platforms have changed the game completely.
Mm.
Before, you needed a big star, and you did not need a solid script. You needed a big star and you
Mm.
needed a good budget with a studio backing you,
Right.
and your film would get commissioned. So you'd have all your massy stuff and all your masala and all that stuff over there. But that's the wave that these guys were riding. Right now,
Mm.
OTT platforms have come and actually shaken up the landscape with Sacred Games and with all these movies coming out. The producers who like producing all the massy kind of stuff have realized that there is an audience who
Mm.
want to watch good stories. And even if that audience wasn't there,
Mm.
that mass is turning into an audience for an OTT platform. Would you rather spend 500 rupees and go to the theater and just watch some random shooting and some songs, or would you sit at home on Netflix and actually watch a good story? So I think there is definitely a change that's come into play, and it's changed the landscape. What's going to be interesting is within the next 3 years' time, you're going to see a huge marginal change from theatrical releases to streaming platforms.
Correct, correct. Because I think, just like you said, it's not just changing one aspect; it's changing how viewers have demanded things now. I mean, were demanding things before, and now how celebrities, the top celebrities, have now being flexible, and they are seeing the opportunities uh, to be here out there on the OTT platforms, and in terms of opportunities for the people who are behind making a film or a TV series as well. But
I think Masi films will never die. That will
yeah.
always be there. It's just that right now our industry was producing, you can say, like 75 to 80% Masi films. I
Mm.
think within the next 3 years, you're going to get like 40 to 45% Masi films, and the rest will be good stories. Not all of them will be art house films like a
Sure.
Revolutionary Road or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
but you'll still get good storytelling. That is
Mm.
something that was lacked in a lot of movies. But I think OTT platforms have inspired the viewer that you can sit down and watch a movie. It doesn't have to be heavy or hard hitting, but the story needs to be good.
Correct.
And I think with the inclusion of this, it's definitely changing the game. And it's better for newer filmmakers coming into the
Mm.
picture. It's better for the established filmmakers as well to actually not cater to the audience right now, because a lot of the top filmmakers are getting funded to cater to the masses. But right now, with the shift, they can actually tell their own stories without that gun to their head, that, gana dalo, the action dalo. They can actually do their own thing. Yeah.
Understood. Actually, that's I don't know if there's this observation which I have had, and I don't know it's because that I have just been into a lot of. I mean, I've watched a lot of movies in the recent past. Is it because of that, or is just a general observation that just like you said, the films apart from the masala films, those are just good stories, and with good stories, I feel that there are these stories are actually very high in relatability. So now that movies like, for instance, Chalang, movies like those which are primarily coming on OTT platforms, these are stories which are around you. Uh, when I saw that film, I don't know if I'm just very new to even that's why I'm finding it very surprising. But when I saw that film, I quickly understood that those are things that happen in your own school. And those are stories that are obviously going to be very high in relatability. So these are just good stories, and if you get that kind of stories, if they don't just teach you something, it's fine. But they are some good concrete solid stories. So yeah,
Agreed.
definitely agree. But two questions which are slightly technical, and I don't know if just talking about them would do justice. But and I would say that it's more of my curiosity to ask this, and I don't know if it's going to help the viewers at all. But fundamentally, what is the job of a director? It's a very basic thing. I mean, if you would want to comprise, if you want to describe that in a very brief manner, what does a director actually do?
So the director is the captain of the ship. His main job is to turn the piece of paper, which is the script, into everything you see on screen. So he's leading around, you can say, 20 different departments. Your art department that comprises of how the place will look. Your costume department, how your characters will dress. He is in charge of the acting, how the actors deliver the performance. He's in charge of the editing. He'll tell the editor what to put next, how to do it. And most importantly, he is in charge of the producer's budget, where he makes that vision come true in that certain amount that's been allocated to a film. So a director is in charge of turning that piece of paper, your script, into every single thing you see, every little detail on screen.
Wow, wow. I mean, with the kind of pace films have, one after the other, and now OTT has come in. I just feel how does a crew or how do people uh, do it so efficiently and so fast? I mean, with the kind of responsibilities they have, just like how you described it to me right now. How does that pace actually come in? It's
See, it's from a very technical standpoint, everyone's if as soon as a project is commissioned, right, you get a director on board. A director will give you a tentative timeline. Like it'll take me, say, 60 days to shoot this film. It'll take me another 4 weeks of post production, and then you hire different crews. So you hire your costume department, you hire your art directors, you've got other producers on board, and then they all are working and they all are getting paid per day. So that's the most important thing when you sign on to a film. I think this is one thing I failed to mention, but usually on movies or even ad films for that matter, everyone is paid per day. So that's why the producer plays a very important role in controlling his budget to make sure that everything is done as per the deadline. So movies can be done as soon as possible. It all depends on the director's vision. If he wants to do some grand thing, and if he wants to take 20 take, I know directors who take like 20 takes for like simple scenes, like they keep doing it again and again. But then I know directors who are so fast, they're so well prepared. Like they come on set, they look at the storyboard. Okay, I want this, shoot, action, cut, take one more take for like safety, and they are pros and they go. But then there are some directors who want to come on set and they want to experiment. They want to see what the vibe is with the actors today, and that's where you go over budget. But everything has a timeline. That's how it works.
understood.
Have to meet your deadline. Yeah.
Right. When it comes to writing a script, Shiv, and because I asked this because you've been a part of this and you primarily have done this in the last few years of your career. Um, just again, the very fundamental basic question is, if you have a story in mind, uh, it can be a story which you can tell yourself or tell somebody else in just 5, 10, or 15 minutes. But when you actually write the draft, and I know that there's a process, there are few 4 or 5 different versions of it, and then you go ahead with it. Uh, do I mean do you write that script yourself? How does that, I mean, if you can just talk about that process of writing a script, who does it? How can you actually break it down to every scene, to every dialogue?
So it actually depends. The scripts are not always written just by a writer. Sometimes scripts are written by two or three writers. They call it like a writer's room. They put down together a writer's. If it's a big movie, they put down together a writer's room, and they have like two or three writers to come, and like one writer will just do the dialogues, one will just do the characters, and one will just focus on the story with the director. But then if you want to talk about majority of films, if you don't have that budget for a writer's room and stuff, majority of films are written by a writer, his assistant, her assistant, however it goes. And you start from scratch. You put down together a good idea. You need to, that's the most important thing of a script. Most important thing, you need to have a unique concept. Don't just write a script because you want to have a movie. Write a script because you have something that nobody else has, or at least something different. uh, you put down your concept together, you present your concept. If your concept gets approved, then they will commission you to write the script for it. And then you put down your concept in detail. You figure out everything, how the whole flow goes of the story. Act one, act two, and act three. So you got to figure out, okay, how does your film end in act three? What happens? What's the obstacles your characters face? And act one, basically, who's your character? What are their goals? And that's your introduction. So it's from a technical standpoint, it's quite easy. But then a lot of writers get stuck and they get lost, and okay, now how do I do this, how do I do that? But it's a fairly simple game if you're passionate about it. Put in the details, it's more fun, because when you watch your movie with your writing, you're like, oh, it's nice, that's my work, I did that.
And writing a script would take tentatively how much time?
It depends on the writer. Like, I know some writers who can actually finish a full length feature film script in like 5 weeks, and like with details and dialogues and everything. And then I know writers who take like a year, 2 years, 3 years to finish a script, because they're trying to make it perfect, or they've got changes, or they are not happy with it, or whatever it is. But it all depends on the script, it depends on the writer, and it depends on what the project is.
Got it. Got it. And the one who has, the one who has a story necessarily doesn't write it. Obviously, I mean, that's what I assume. Uh,
No, no, no. I mean, it can work both ways. If a writer gets a story, you write down your story. If you're not a writer and you've got a great idea which can actually be commissioned, you put down your idea into what's called a treatment, right? You put down a whole like 1 page, 2 page, 3 page. You put down your idea. You put as much detail as you can put.
and,
If
hmm.
basically, I think the question is, if you're an amateur, how do you get your script out there, right?
Yeah.
So you put down as much detail as you can in your treatment. Make sure that everything that you want from your idea is there. The most basic concept is having act one, act two, act three, start, a middle, and an end. And then you present that idea to whoever you want to, a producer, a production house. You can present it to another writer if you want,
Hmm.
and then they will add the details and finesse it into a screenplay.
Got it. Got it. Uh, so Shiv, do you anytime feel that the people who have stories, the people who write, uh, they are not there on the front at all? Um, because again, the label, the production house, the actors obviously uh, take away a lot of it. I mean, justified, that's justified. But the one who has that story, the concrete, the very gist of it, uh, do they, in your point of view, in your personal opinion, do they uh, shouldn't they be out there more? Shouldn't they be in the limelight a little bit at least?
I think two of the most underrated um, divisions in the film industry are your stuntmen, your stunt crew, and to your writers, because they are the soul of the film. At the end of the day, especially in Bollywood, you'll notice that the actor gets a lot of credit, not even the director, but it's the actor that gets a lot of credit. But I think at the end of the day, when it's a good movie, it all goes down to the writer. And I think what's happening with OTT platforms coming into play, there is definitely a big paradigm shift happening, because a lot of these writers are now in demand and they are sought after. So
Mm-hmm.
while they may not get the shallow recognition, which is the fame, I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of writers are not after that, because they are definitely getting recognized behind the scenes, and they're getting the big paychecks.
Correct. And
So
that's why
yeah,
we are now we now know who the writer is. Uh,
yeah.
Initially, we never discussed that at all. So now we know that and quite well. So yeah, that's 100% true. Um, and I also feel whenever I've always thought of this aspect, I also feel that I don't know if I'm right or not, but uh, writers are generally extremely creative people. The ones who you actually genuinely, authentically are creative, and uh, they get everything they want in life from that creativity. So I feel that they aren't really the people who would even want that kind of limelight in the first place. Um, so
A lot of them actually deserve it though. By it's even if they're not fond of the limelight or the fame, but a
mhm,
lot of them deserve that recognition, which sometimes gets overlooked. That's why I sincerely feel that the stunt crew and the writers are two of the most undervalued assets in the film industry. And in whatever little way I can to bring that up to speed, I will definitely be trying to do so. But definitely writers and stuntmen.
correct. I want to talk to you in detail about Gone Case and how that journey began for you. When was the first time you had that idea? How it took shape, and the kind of time it took. Maybe some challenges you might have faced.
Where do I begin? So, A Gone Case was initially written as a feature film script. I wrote down a script and I partnered up with my ex-boss, Kunal Chiddasani, to turn this into a film for the OTT platform. Because we had written Gone Case in such a style that it didn't have your traditional, um, you know, uh, Bollywood eccentricities. Like, it didn't have a love story, it didn't have music. This is the reason I'm mentioning these things, because I wrote this script when I was working in Bangkok. I was living and working in Bangkok at the time.
Okay.
So I came back to India with the script, and we went and pitched it to a streaming platform. And they love the script. They get back to us after a while, and they say that they want to purchase the rights of Gone Case to turn it into a movie. But they told us that we needed to add a minimum of 3 songs, and they will give us the music directors to choose from.
Okay.
And we needed to change the story a little bit, as in not the story entirely, but change 2 character arcs and make a love story between the 2 characters. And if we didn't, then I mean, we had to pass on to the offer.
Hmm.
And that's something that actually really messed with my head, because we work so hard on creating something different, and you get to this point, you get so far, and
Hmm.
now you're just going to give up your baby, and you don't know what they're going to do with it.
Right.
So when they said 3 songs minimum, and they said a love story, that like messed with my head completely. And I told Kunal, I said, you know what, let's do one thing. If we have to come back to them with this offer sometime later down the road, we'll do that. But for now, let me tell the story the original way, and let me turn this into a graphic novel. So Kunal said, like, do you think that there's a market in India for graphic novels? I said, whether there is or there isn't, let me at least get the story out there, so
Hmm.
we can, we can always come back to our original story and be like, this is what we had created. So he was very encouraging on that, and he said, you know what, do your thing, tell your story. We can focus on selling the film, making the profits or whatever later. Right now, let's just tell a good story. So that is when I got in touch with an illustrator and a colorist, and together he illustrated the script, and we turned Gone Case into a comic book. Now, about 4 weeks before we could release the comic book, I took his illustrations and I edited a video together,
Okay.
and I released that video on Instagram. That video went viral and it touched like 500,000 views. And 4 weeks later, when Gone Case released, it became Amazon's #1 seller, hottest new seller, and it beat Wonder Woman and Batman. The whole reason I got into comics in the first place. I'm a Batman, a huge Batman fan. If you see all the stuff behind me, but for Gone Case to beat DC Comics, Wonder Woman, and Batman that week, that was definitely a feeling. And that is when we actually got approached by an investor, and we were told that, you want to make Gone Case your way, let's make it into a film your way. So
Wow.
that's actually been the journey of Gone Case. Yeah.
That's really, really, really amazing. And how, I mean, uh, how many years would have uh, gone?
So I began writing the script of Gone Case in March of 2019, and I began working on the comic book of Gone Case in I think Jan of 2020. Yeah, so it's around 1.5 years until the comic book came out. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And for you, Shiv, personally, uh, how, I mean, for you, how do you how do you differentiate a good and a bad story? What is good storytelling according to you?
I think as long as the viewer feels something. So if it's a horror movie, if you get scared, it's a good story. If it's an emotional movie and you felt something, you're like a little embarrassed, feel like crying, it's a good story. It's comedy film and you genuinely laughed. You're not
Right.
sitting down and thinking like, kya kar raha hai yaar tu? Like, kya bol raha hai yaar? You actually feel like laughing. Or if it's a suspense thriller, which is my favorite genre, and you actually don't know what's happening next, there's
Hmm.
unpredictability. I think those are the key elements of a good story, where the filmmaker makes the audience feel something. That's why I'm not a big fan. I think maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm not the biggest fan of Masi films because it's predictable. You know what's going to happen. Ek hero hai, this is going to happen. He's going to kill all these guys, and
Right.
So I like the smaller stories. I like getting engrossed and lost into the story.
Correct.
And the worst part as a filmmaker, because you've been behind the scenes for so long, when the story is not captivating, after like 10 20 minutes into watching the movie, what happens to me is I'll be like, ye to master shot hai, abhi close up liya, ye dolly liya, jimmy jib ka shot hai. So I get into a technical aspect,
Okay.
like
Okay. Okay.
lighting kharab hai yaar, foregrounding mein kya dala. So as long as I'm not distracted and I'm not looking at the actor's hair or whatever, the story engrosses you. I think, yeah, the filmmaker needs to make you feel something. You're good.
Right. So you go into the analysis part when you actually have to just focus on the. Uh,
That's me personally.
yeah. Yeah. Understood.
That's me personally. But I've noticed for the casual viewer, when I'm around my friends or whatever, they'll be like, if it's a famous actress, for example, you saw her Instagram in the middle of the movie. You saw her Instagram. She recently posted this. Oh, I think she's dating that one. That's when you know you're losing the audience.
Right.
Like
Right.
as soon as the movie starts, you got to be like, okay,
Hmm.
what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? I think those are key elements of a good story. You should make the audience feel something.
Right. And do you ever feel that movies should have learnings? I mean, are we at a point where the kind, just like, there's so much attention today uh, here, and where there's so much attention, obviously means that there's so much power in the hands of these people. I mean, if I personally feel that Netflix, as an organization, controls everything from start to end, uh, right? Not just distribution, not just production. It's back and it's forth, right? It's from start to end. And when you have that kind of power, uh, uh, don't you ever feel that this power should actually be used to change things? Because what I feel is that the kind of TV series or the kind of stuff we watch now today on OTT platforms, the time gap is so short, in which the movie or the TV series is out here, is released, and there are people talking about it. Uh, in just no time, it's in conversations. So it's not only striking conversations, it's starting conversations, but it's actually affecting people's minds, and either it can be used negatively or positively. So do you ever feel that cinema in general, and now with OTT, there's so much attention, and because there's attention, there's power, should be used to teach people things?
So I have a very open mind on this subject. I think yes and no. I'll tell you why. You can't make every film with a philosophical message in it. I mean, you can't, and at the same time, you can't make every film just, mind-numbing stories. So you have to have a balance of both. I think that what is key and what should be common between both these genres is storytelling. As long as you have a good story to tell, that is what's most important. Your narrative should be engrossing, and you should keep making movies, because that's what, like we spoke at the start of this conversation, movies are primarily entertainment, and it's meant to get the audience free of their day-to-day mundane
Right.
tasks and stuff. So you do need movies that purely entertain, whether it's a comedy or a horror or an action or whatever it is. And at the same time, you do need movies that empower and basically teach you things. And I also think that when you are opting for the latter, it should be done very, very responsibly,
Mm,
because we live in such a woke generation today, and we have such a woke culture. In fact, we are in the middle of cancel culture. I've noticed one thing: a lot of filmmakers want to make these kind of films with messages, not because they actually believe in those messages, but they want to make these messages because they want to pass on these messages because it is the cool thing to do. It's a popular
right.
thing to do. They want their film to trend, so then they will you know forcibly add characters which have gone through a lot of things in life. They'll forcibly make characters get all these obstacles and stuff like that. But I think it should be done naturally, and it should come from a place of good intention. For
Mm,
example, if a filmmaker has actually been through something and then you want to tell a story of a certain character, their certain journey, it's different. So it's a very, that's why, yes and no, it's a very tricky,
correct.
it's a very tricky subject. I think the most important thing is storytelling. If you want to tell a movie with a message, do it with a good intention. Don't just do it to make money and to make a movie trend.
Right, right. I honestly never thought about it like that. But now when you say that, there's so much sensitivity in in telling a story that has a message like that. Today to just trigger something in this generation takes no time. So uh, that definitely makes sense. Just towards the end, I had a couple of things to ask you. Uh, I recently read a lot about creativity, and uh, having a creative career, uh, uh, how difficult it is to actually start with a career into creativity, creative person. How difficult is for a creative person to be there on the right time, at the right place, with the right kind of people, uh, to make a living out of it. I just wanted to talk about this, so that if there's somebody who wants to take that first step towards a career like that, they are very well aware about the the economical side of things, the kind of backing you require, or so just that. Do you ever feel there's luck involved uh, in creativity, and having it as a career?
These are two different questions. Uh, are you talking about what does it take for someone who is not from the creative field to jump into the creative field, but this is just talent wise, or are you talking about the financial situation, and are you?
Yeah, so more on the financial situation, more on actually, taking a leap of faith, starting a career like that, uh, uh, and understanding that you will need some kind of backup. You will need some kind of luck as well. Because a creative person usually tends to think that you know that because you're creative, because you are into the craft, because you're so passionate about it, it will find its own way. What is your opinion on it? Is it true? What do you?
I actually I don't agree with that because I'll put it this way: a lot of people who are in the creative field, and a lot of people who tend to get successful in the creative field, there's no luck involved. It's all hard work. So you ideally, if you're talking about someone who has never been in the creative field and they want to venture into it, for your viewers watching, if you're looking for something to inspire you, what I suggest is look at a creative job as a job. You whatever you want to do, make sure that you start off. If you want to play safe, like you said, you want to have a backing, then don't look at making your own film where you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from and stuff like that. Start off as an assistant to somebody. Start off as an intern somewhere where you are getting paid and you are learning the ropes of the creative field, so to speak. That can be in an advertising agency, that can be on a film set,
Mm,
but you will still be secure enough, with where your next paycheck is coming from. At the same time, you will learn so much. And when you start off as an intern or even as an assistant director, when you start from the bottom, it's always a good thing because there's only one view, which is on top. And you look at all these different aspects and all these different industries, and that's when you realize, okay, I want to do that, or I want to be a producer. Okay, I want to be a stylist. I want to do all these things. So it's only when you start from the bottom, you work your way up, and you got to work like a mofo to climb up,
mm,
to that place. So I, honestly speaking, I don't believe in luck. I don't think that there's luck involved. I think you create your luck. You've got to push yourself. If you are in a room with five other guys and there are five other assistants and five other interns, you have to remember that y'all are all vying for the same job.
mm,
Now, the only way that you will get that job is if you actually make the sacrifices, sleep late, you're working on minimum wage. You are getting paid, but it's minimum wage. You're constantly pushing yourself. You may not get that weekend off with your girlfriend. You may have to
mm,
be at work, but it's these things that actually get you up there. I think hard work supersedes luck. So anyone can do it. You just have to actually push yourself. And in the creative field, it's kind of fun because at the end of the day, you're not just sitting down and, in my opinion, respect to every industry. But
mm,
I think instead of just like crunching numbers or working for somebody else, this way you're allowing your mind to get the freedom to think of your own ideas. You're getting to give your own suggestions, and
mm.
then to actually see your own ideas, even as an assistant, to come on screen. It's definitely a satisfying feeling that we creatives chase. So it's well worth it. There is a secure route to do it, like I said, the internship route, the assistant route.
Mm,
And then there is the risky route to do it, where you feel that you've reached a point and now you want to tell your own story. You
mm.
don't know when the next paycheck is coming in, and you're willing to take that risk, but you got to risk it to get the biscuit. It's the higher the risk you take, the bigger the
What?
payoff is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's one thing which you mentioned, when you start from the bottom, you can see different aspects, different fields, different industries, and you can then understand what you want to get into. So, I just had a question. When you're just starting out, even when, just like you described, when you're an intern, when you're working under somebody, uh, or in general, in a general sense, there are things that interests you, right? Uh, like personally, I have been watching movies, and there are parts of making a movie that interest me a lot, you know and then I partly take some action on it. I partly write. I maybe I feel right now I'm at a point where I feel uh, you know uh, uh, those characters, they inspire me so much. Movie making in general inspire me so much that I want to give it a shot in some aspect. I want to be a part of telling a good story, basically. uh, uh, so the chances of you getting confused, in terms of you over exaggerate your possibility or how much you fit into something, right? uh, so how do you deal with that? uh, right, you might feel that okay, you can tomorrow uh, get into filmmaking, tomorrow be an actor, tomorrow get into writing, uh, but it can be because you watched a few movies. It can be that pump you get. It can be just a feeling which fades away later on, or it's maybe that if tomorrow I see Shiv doing something and getting up there, I take that identity and start matching myself to that identity. So this kind of confusion, how do you know that okay, you should actually give it a shot? Is there anything, have you felt it? Have you been at a point anytime like this?
Always. I feel it all the time. But you have to look at everything like a script. There's your act one, there's your act two, there's your act three. So your act one is where you get inspired to, either become a director or an actor, or you've seen someone and you want to do that. Now your act three is when you will actually become that director and that actor, or whatever it is that inspired you in act one. What's crucial is your act two. So you have to work towards that, and you have to push yourself towards that. So if you decide, for example, like I want to become a writer, you have to tell yourself that I'm going to do whatever it takes and apply myself as best as I can to become a writer. You write 20 scripts, 30 scripts, and only when you get rejected on everything, you write another script, and then you still push yourself. It's that act two that actually pushes you
Mm,
towards your goals. And trust me, it's not like act three, oh, you know what, I've got my first film, I'm a writer, it's great. No, then the whole ball game changes. Now you got to make sure that your film is actually good. You got to make sure that you have a second film coming in. So it
mm,
never stops. But between you getting inspired, remember that you have to work towards what you get inspired for.
mm,
No one ever said that, I want to be an actor, and then the next day they gave an audition and did it. If you decide you want to be an actor, you actually have to act, like learn how to act, pretend to do it in front of the mirror, record yourself at home, look at other auditions, study other actors, get rejected, see what you suck at, see what you're good at, work onto your strengths. Some
mm,
casting directors may say, you know what, you're a good comedy actor,
mm,
maybe you should focus on that. Now, if you want to play safe, you'll focus on comedy. But if you're an aggressive guy, you'll be like, you know what? Screw this casting director. I'm going to work on my acting to make sure I can get those other roles too. But
mm.
it's what comes after getting inspired. So anyone can do anything. You just have to apply yourself to it.
But
Like,
what if
trust me.
you're wrong?
This industry is all about that.
But what if you're wrong and you put in that effort? You give in those years. You give in 4 or 5 years of your life, and then there's no validation. There's no route ahead. What if you then regret? Okay, I shouldn't have taken this path at all.
See, you have to look at it this way. If you want to take an actor, for instance, and he has just been auditioning and he's been trying and trying for 4 or 5 years. If in 4 or 5 years he's not gotten a single project, and this is with him actually learning acting,
Mm,
studying, doesn't have to go to a film school, can learn from YouTube, look at other actors, but actually applying himself to his craft, studying and doing all these things. If in 4 or 5 years he's not gotten a single project, there is always something to take away from that. Then he can maybe become a casting director, because then he knows what works, what does not work, what production
right.
houses want, because he's got 5 years of experience of getting rejected.
Mm,
So he knows what they want. And he's made friends with all these actors. He can become a casting director. If
right.
you work for 5 years to become a director, you had to be an assistant sometime, somewhere.
Correct.
Maybe, yeah. So maybe then if you do end up
Mm,
becoming a director, you can always become a producer. You can always look into, what directors do. You can become a writer. So there is your experience will never amount to nothing if you actually
mm,
applied yourself during that process.
correct. So that experience always stays with you, and that is going to take
It's the
you.
hard work. It's the
Right.
hard work. So you have to be the hardest worker in the room, to quote the great one.
Right. So just one last question. So there was this video which I was seeing. It was the roundtable, actors roundtable by Rajiv Masan, and I came
Yeah,
across
yeah.
the video. And I've been watching those videos since a while. And there's this one thing in that video, in that interview, uh, where Vicky Kaushal says, uh, you have to live your 9 to 5, live your 5 to 9 to be able to do your 9 to 5. When Rajiv asks him, what inspires you to act, and what are the things that you take away from life in order to contribute towards your craft, he says that uh, the life you live as a human being, you have to live that life uh, fulfillingly, and only if you do that can you take those experiences from there and then uh, put them in your craft. So for you, how important is taking surroundings, I mean, living fulfillingly with where you are, being in the moment, in order to take inspiration from there and tell good stories? Or is it something else for you?
It's I think it's not necessarily where I am at the moment or my surroundings. I think my interpretation of what Vicky Kaushal said is basically you have to live and breathe your passion of who you are. So,
Hmm.
your 5 to 9 basically means you're still sleeping as an actor, you're thinking as an actor, eating as an actor,
Okay.
you're still thinking movies, sleeping movies, thinking movies. That's my interpretation of it. So I think that no matter where you are and what you do, because you can get inspired in the worst circumstances. I was doing corporate films when I wrote Gone Case, and it's only when I was in that situation doing corporate films I thought to myself, you know what, good job, great money. Is this the rest of my life? And
Mm.
if it's not, no one's going to come and give me an opportunity. I have to create it. So I think as long as you live and breathe your passion and think of what you want to do all the time, that is what will, you know, give you your 9 to 5.
Right. So, thank you so much, Shiv, for taking out this time. I think this is something which you don't generally. These are some insights which you don't generally come across and understand so deeply as how you describe and how you explained. So, thank you so much for that. Uh, I had a lot of questions to ask you, and thank you for doing justice to them. So. Uh, Congratulations also for Gone Case. And I really feel that this, whatever we've done and discussed till now, will be obviously of a lot of value to other people as well.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And all the best to you. Loving the channel, loving the hustle, and keep doing what you're doing. I'm looking forward to more episodes.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you too, man.